Guano de, guano de, guano de, Guanali, Guanalia, Guanode, Guanalia, Guanoda, Ego, Igane, Ego, Igana, Guanalia, Guanodanahi, Guanalia, Guanodanahi, Guanalia, Guanode, Guanalia, Guanode, Guanalia, Guanoda, Deyaka, 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 Guanalia, Guanodanahi, Guanalia, Guanodanahi, Guanalia, Guanode, Guanalia, Guanode, Guanalia, Guanoda, Yakino, Taho.
Isok, Kiniskamijina, Gumijina, Asahawegi, Wiwalolek, Uchidula Nagwek, Ahidamolek, et Quavining Giskuk, Asiawi Abohon Muyek, Gets Weskonkuchik, Ahaginama Hachik, Aktigi Guskijinuk, Iginamuyek and Sedwohan, Aksalsudi, Ahamolgiganodi, Klamandan Desiek, Kisisiawatisnen, Akisiluguatisnen, Unlewimtimodahan. Ahidamo, Igna Edamolek, Iginamuyek, Wantahodi, Uchidula Sithamu, Nkijinen, Absidnogama. Creator, grandmothers, grandfathers, and ancestors, we are grateful to you for this day, and we ask that you be with us. And we humbly ask for your assistance as we address and teach other people about the Mi'kmaq. Grant wisdom, love, and strength to all of us so that we can continue to do our work together in a careful and proper manner in promoting Indigenous matters or concerns, and help us to find peace on the earth, our mother. Sidnogama, all my relations.
I want to acknowledge that we are sitting in Mi'kma'ki, that we're sitting in Mi'kmaq territory, and to acknowledge that this is the unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq. And being unceded, it means the land was never given away. The rights to the land were never given away. And that through the peace and friendship treaties, we're invited to live in peace and friendship. So I want to acknowledge and give thanks to the ancestors of this land and the people who have been resilient and are still here, and to give thanks to Mother Earth and the beautiful territory that we're in. Walalan, thank you.
Shalasi, bienvenue, welcome. De Louise, Deanne Shepard, de Liawe, Dakgabuk. My name is Deanne Shepard, proud Elnu, and I'm from Newfoundland and Labrador. Walal and Kathy for giving us this moment and getting us into our hearts with your gathering song and the healing vibration of your drum. Walalan. Walal and Jane for your opening prayer and starting us off this evening in a good way, and for all your love and friendship through the journey of preparing for tonight. Walal and Ishmael for the land acknowledgement, and looking forward to hearing more from you later this evening. And Walal and Terry for inviting me to this series and for using your power of persuasion to entice me into this space. It has stretched me past my comfort zone, and I appreciate your patience as you brought me up to speed with your vision for this series and how I might play a role as an Illu woman in bringing this to these next 3 webinars with a view through an Indigenous lens.
Thanks, Deanne. So I'm Terry Gibbs, and before I say anything about myself, I just want to say on behalf of the Global Social Justice Project and our co-sponsors, Unama'ki College, the School of Arts and Social Sciences at Cape Breton University, the Cape Breton Partnership, Planet Citizen, Peace Quest, Cape Breton, and the Animal Ethics Project. It's really my absolute pleasure and honor to welcome you all this evening to this absolutely wonderful gathering. And I feel almost tearful coming to this space because it's been a lot of friendship building and community building and background work. And I'm so grateful for everyone who's helped with that. We're especially grateful to the clan mothers, the elders, and the knowledge keepers for so generously allowing us this evening to witness their talking circle. It feels like a real gift and quite a sacred event. And I want to thank Jane Meter in particular for her kindness and beautiful spirit in teaching both myself and Deanne, not only in terms of preparing us for this evening, but in modeling what compassion looks like in action. And I want to thank Deanne for her friendship and commitment to working from the heart. And on a practical note, for her agreeing to actually work with me, because she's a busy person working on her doctorate amongst a number of other things, and she's taken time out to dedicate to this series. So thank you very much. Just to say a bit about myself, because I was asked to. I'm a mother of 2 with extended family in Panama, an educator, at times an activist, and I've been inspired by liberation movements in Latin America and around the world. And I have a deep belief in the power and importance of education in social transformation and in the power of ordinary people to change the world. I'm myself a settler of Welsh and English descent, and I've lived in Unama'ki since 2004. I'm very happy to be here. Why this series, you might ask? I'll just say a couple of words about the series in general and the politics of hope. Deanne, that's a big thing. Deanne's going to talk a bit more about hope. We're also looking at building resilient, compassionate, and inclusive communities. And I think the idea for the series really emerged as we were having discussions amongst colleagues at the Global Social Justice Project and around in the community, the violence and environmental destruction of the system that we're currently living in, the failing capitalist system, ongoing colonialist and imperialist violence, patriarchy, racism, homophobia, the creation of walls, both metaphorically and literally. So we wanted to create a space to bring people together to show how they're breaking down these walls in an effort to transform and heal our world and to model more compassionate ways of being. And so we're really honored to have everybody here who's willing to share in that discussion. I just wanted to say a quick housekeeping, a couple of issues that things to bear in mind so that you can fully enjoy the event. We're advised to use the Zoom gallery view so that you can see all our panelists at once, and the chat box will appear on the side, so you'll get a better view. If you'd like to ask a question, please use the Q&A tool. We welcome all respectful and constructive comments on the chat, and we would apologize in advance that our guests will not likely have the time to address all your questions, but we just want you to know that we really value your thoughts, and anything not addressed today, we'll have note of it, and hopefully we'll be able to pick up in future sessions. So I'll just turn it over to Deanne again.
Malal and Terry, I just wanted to add that Terry and I actually didn't realize when we started working together that our research and teaching and our lives are natural extensions of our work with trauma in our communities and in our own families. These past few weeks have been incredibly charged, particularly for Indigenous communities. And it is important that we all remember to take care of each other as we step into these spaces, remembering that we are human first. We are in the middle of a pandemic, and that has had us all indoors, many of us separated from family and on our computers for 7 months. So if you need to step away and look after yourself, we can't see you and you're not going to interrupt us. So please take care of yourself. And remember that connecting with friends and loved ones is always a very effective strategy. If you need support, if something that gets talked about tonight stirs up feelings for you. Terry and I are also both open to debriefing with anyone who feels they need to in the coming days. And most importantly, we know that part of building resilience and providing opportunity and resilience and healing is providing opportunities to share our stories and deeply listen to the stories of others. So to all of you for joining us tonight. So who am I? Where did I come from? And where am I going? I said before, my name is Deanne Shepard, and I was born and raised in Labrador City. I am the mother of 2 boys, grandmother of a boy and a girl, and I have a partner who has lovingly supported me through this journey. I've spent the last 35 years of my life working in nursing as a nurse practitioner, mostly in primary care in all kinds of different places. The last full-time post I had was as director of patient care in Wapna'kikewi'skwaq, and that was a real eye-opener for me. When most of my friends were deciding that they were getting ready to retire, I decided to go back and do my PhD. And I have done most of my research looking at the colonization of nursing as a profession, and specifically the safety of Indigenous nurses in the spaces where they're educated and where they work. I knew this work was important, but this week has put nursing up front and center as perpetrators of violence towards Indigenous peoples, and this must simply stop. We have to support Indigenous nurses coming behind us, and I just wanted to give a special shout out to my niece, Grace Day, who I think may be following in my footsteps and planning on going into nursing, and she's become a fan now of Pauline Meter, who you're going to meet in a few minutes. And these folks represent the future of Indigenous nursing. I am so grateful to have met and have gotten to know this wonderful group of wise women tonight. And it is now my distinct pleasure to introduce Leigh Maracle, who really doesn't need an introduction. And she's going to do this herself in a moment, but I can't, there's a few things that I must say about Leigh. Leigh is a Stolo woman, she's a trailblazer, and she's opened many doors for Indigenous and non-Indigenous women. She's an award-winning author of over a dozen books. She bravely speaks her truth in her writing, her activism, and how she just lives her everyday life. Her words, her courage, her spirit both inspire us and heal us. She's a teacher at the University of Toronto, guest lecturer at universities across Canada. She's the recipient of numerous literary awards, an honorary Doctor of Letters from St. Thomas University. She's the recipient of the Queen's Diamond Jubilee Medal and an Officer of the Order of Canada. I left the Colonial Awards at the end. And before I hand this talking stick to Leigh, I would like to just share with you one of her poems. It's in her latest book that she wrote with her daughters called Hope Matters. Hope lives inside the artist, instrument, brush, voice, pen, sculpture, body. Hope breathes life inside those shadowy crevices where doubt waits to feast on our weakened and dimmed inner light. Hope gives us strength to trudge through the muck and the mire, to find solid ground. Hope is the home of curiosity, imagination, intelligence, and compassion. Artists are an empathic link between hope and the outside world. Hope frees, hope relieves, hope moves us. Artists move people from inspiration to action and direct hope toward a new reality that can be shared by everyone. In the end, hope matters. I'm also just aware that Leigh has had some trouble getting on tonight, so I'm just going to actually pass it back to you, Terry, and when she joins, we can interrupt and get her to introduce herself.
Sure. Thank you, Deanne. What a beautiful poem. And when Deanne suggested reading that poem, I was so happy because it really captures the spirit of this event and the series in general. So thank you for that. I'm going to introduce Leigh Potvin, our other commentator. I'll say a few words and then get her to add anything that she would like to add. I could say a lot about Leigh's academic credentials, her work on social justice issues, including food justice and advocacy for the LGBTQ two-spirit community. She's a professor in experiential studies of community and sport at Cape Breton University. But perhaps just to mention my personal interactions with Leigh is more of a telling story. When we were sort of first coming into contact, I learned about her work in the food community. And then over the last year, she had been working on food issues and the promotion of community gardens as sites of knowledge in our local community. And I was working with some CBU and community folks on creating a peace, knowledge, and friendship garden at Cape Breton University that would be a site to acknowledge our place on Mi'kmaq land and to think about this idea of connecting with nature as a way to understand ourselves and each other and to live better together. When Leigh found out about the project, she was very excited. She'd been thinking along similar lines. She instantly jumped in and threw in some grant money, which is always lovely. She really trusted that the process that we had created around the formation of the garden didn't ask questions, just said, here's a contribution. And she was instantly willing to support our efforts in any way she could. And her willingness to sort of roll up her sleeves and get to the work when she arrived in this community impressed me and others who sort of heard about the project she was working on. But in addition to all of that, and for this evening, a critical thing to mention about Leigh is her awareness and work on white and settler privilege. And we invited her in as a commentator because we feel that she reflects in her way of being the kind of humility and openness that's necessary for the kind of work that we're all doing here this evening and going forward. So thank you, Leigh, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Terry. That's really kind. So my name is Leigh Potvin, and I'm going to speak about myself not in an academic realm. Terry gave you the broad strokes of my academic career. I am a white settler. I come from Thunder Bay, Ontario, which is the traditional territory of the Fort William First Nation, and was the treaty signed here was the Robinson Superior Treaty. So I am a teacher. I came to teaching in my 20s as a formal classroom teacher and moved into academia in my early 30s. So I have been working as an educator and teacher for 15 years, roundabout. And I think the thing that really drives me as a teacher is my activist sensibilities that I really carved out as an undergraduate, reading people like Maracle. So you can imagine how I might feel right now. I'm a mom. I'm fairly new to the mom game, and I'm learning. It's a steep curve. But I also consider myself to be a learner. And I think that is something that really drives me as a teacher, is that I'm always learning. And people say that they're learning from their students and they're trying to learn. But I really try to walk that walk. And I really do try to make the relationships that I develop in my classroom with my students two-way streets where we're learning from each other. It means I sometimes have to learn about pop culture that I might be coming out of touch with, but I try to stay sharp. I'm also a daughter and a friend and a community builder, and you'll see in my photo, I'm a grower. I like to think I grow community, I grow people and relationships, and I also very proudly grow garlic. I love to grow garlic, and I could talk about it all day long, but I will not. So I look forward to seeing everyone at the end and to be able to share some ideas with my esteemed commentator colleague, Leigh Maracle. And I'm just really looking forward to this evening and all these wonderful, wonderful folks that are here. So thank you.
I would like now to ask you to join me now as we welcome Wapna'kikewi'skwaq, Women of First Light.
Hello. My name is Ishmael Monroe, and I'll be starting off the discussions, but trying to be somewhat brief, just to give a bit of a history of the organization and what it grew out of. Many of us had been working informally for about 14 years, 20 years, a long time. First of all, I should say I am Gotchamanese. So my people came from the Highlands of Scotland and came to Mi'kmaq territory in 1778. So have been here for a long time. I also think as settlers, it's important to know your own culture and to learn what you can from that. So with Women of First Light, it originally started through the Catherine Donnelly Foundation, which is a small foundation in Toronto. And they did a lot of adult education grants, and they wanted to make a real difference. They wanted to see a real shift in society. And they particularly wanted to work with Indigenous people, immigrants, and low income. And so they started a project called Writing Relations and brought people together to create it rather than creating it themselves. They've done everything completely in partnership. And so I'd been a part of those early meetings, and so they called me and asked if I would help organize a meeting of Indigenous women from Wabanaki territory. And so we came together in May of 2015, strong women coming together, and it was really beautiful. And as women, when people heard of this opportunity, at first women were all thinking, well, what could we do for our communities? What could we do for this one and that one? And then as our discussions went on, we realized that what the Catherine Donnelly was talking about, what kind of supports did the women need who are working in the front lines? many clan mothers, women who are helping to support communities in lots of different ways with no supports. And so there was this, oh, it's to strengthen us. And so the conversation went to around that we wanted to change the story of Indigenous women. We wanted to change the story to the actual truth, which is that Indigenous women are incredibly resilient, are full of hope and love and power, and that Indigenous women hold the center of communities. And so that was how the organization started. And as a part of writing relations, the Mi'kmaq name of Abijiwal Malutanech, and Janie can correct me if I'm still mispronouncing it, came to be. And so they're in the East, it's Indigenous women, and the central area, it's in immigrants, and out West, it's low income, but we all network with each other. And since that time, we've just done amazing, amazing work. But the pillars of that work is unconditional love, really coming from the heart, with women leadership, which cares about all people and includes all people. So being women-led doesn't mean that men are excluded or children are excluded or the deer or the moose. Everything is in there because women care about all life. And since that time, we've held various gatherings. We've started working on a book of trailblazer women in Wapna'kike territory. And if we ever get rolling, it'll probably have about 6 volumes because there are just so many phenomenal, phenomenal women who, faced incredible challenges, but achieved just amazing, heartwarming things. And a lot of our work has also been based on restoring the clan mother system, which was really tricky. And I remember one very telling meeting where people said, well, are we willing to really stand up and talk about this, about clan mothers? Because the colonial impact has been so intense that it can be challenging for Indigenous women to stand up. It can mean you don't get furnace oil in the winter, you don't get a house. And so as one of the other things that was said at the beginning meeting was that we should form our own organization. And so we did follow through those directions, those visions that came from that first meeting. And I should say we always start with prayer, and that many of the directions come through that. And so we did form our own organization, which is Women of First Light. And we opened our own bank account, which had 0 in it. And Kathy Martin said, take a picture. This is an historic moment because we've always come under people. But now things have grown, and we have all sorts of projects that are going on. We've got community gardens, we've done canning workshops, we have missing and murdered Indigenous women working with the families, making peak tats. Mi'kmaq's been working with seniors. So in all these communities, it's around healing the colonialism, healing the pain and the trauma that people have gone through, and loving and accepting each other and supporting each other on our journeys and towards living the way the Creator meant us to live on this earth. And I think that's enough for me. So I'm going to pass the talking stick to Paulina.
Thank you, Ish. My name is Paulina Meter. My spirit name is Golden Rainbow Eagle. I have the spirit of the eagle, the protector of the beluga whale, and I am a member of the Turtle Clan. I come from the traditional lands of Unama'ki, which most of you would know is Cape Breton Island, from Member 2 First Nation. And I'm currently living in Jibuktuk, so in Halifax. By profession, I am a nurse. I'm an LPN, and I work mostly in critical care. And I also am my affiliation with Women of First Light is I am their youth, one of their young women that is one of their youth members. I like to think of myself more as a grandmother in training because these women are phenomenal. I grown up with these women as my aunties. You know, they're really close to my mom. They've all been in and out of my life in different times, and I just am so proud and so honored to be learning from them, and I'm so honored to be a part of this today. So I'll get into some of the topics I wanted to cover quickly. Deanne did talk about the violence in nursing that we've seen recently, and some of our viewers may have seen a Facebook post I made about it during a particularly emotional moment. It has been also published by the New Brunswick Media Co-op, and you know, my main message in that was really just about compassion. You know, as in the profession, we need it more, and we need accountability. And I'm hoping that with the conversations I have and things like this that I'm so honored to be a part of, we can sort of hope to start shifting the views of Indigenous people within the healthcare system. Because, you know, we are not, you know, we need to break the stereotypes. And then the other thing, you know, as a nurse that I really want to push as a message is that we're responsible to take care of everyone. It doesn't matter their race, it doesn't matter their income or their literacy or their education background or their addictions. You know, so what if someone is a quote unquote drunk Indian? They have every right to have just as good quality healthcare as any other Canadian citizen. It does not matter. And you know, even though that is a stereotype, most of us don't fall into that category. That's something else to deal with. But in nursing, that bottom line is it does not matter. They're still entitled to that care. And I have a lot more to say on that, but I really want to focus on some more positive stuff. I just felt very important to share that. So for me, you know, I kind of was tasked with setting the intention for this, and I, like I said in the beginning, I'm so honored to be a part of this and with these beautiful women and to learn from them, because I really believe in feminine leadership with our people. I believe that that is going to bring back so much for us because so much has been taken historically, and reclaiming that is so important. And I carry a lot of ceremonies that I've learned from my mother, who's also on this panel. That's Jane Meter, in case you couldn't tell by the last name. But some of the ceremonies I'm blessed with carrying include a lot of feminine ceremonies. So around the moon and water ceremonies. And it's very, very important to me too to make those spaces, you know, to spirit safe, because I have run into a lot of issues in some ceremonial spaces where they're, you know, led by males who don't quite understand, or they have a lot of colonized ideas or Christian ideas that have seeped in, and they exclude those people, which really gets to me because it's, you know, that's not our way. You know, we were feminine led, but we also believe in balance, and there's always a balance of masculine and feminine in everyone. So, you know, that's a big mission in what I'm doing with the ceremonies that I do is I really want to make sure there's safe spaces for everyone. And like Ish said, you know, that feminine leadership, that's what it's about. It's about love and compassion and welcoming and making space. We're not excluding people, and that includes men and masculine leaning people. Everyone is welcome. Everyone has the right to learn and to love and to feel connected to their spirit. And I feel like that's a root of what these beautiful women are doing in this organization, is making spaces and teaching people. And it's so great. And then one teaching I did want to share in particular that I was asked to share, is about owls. So Gugugwes in our language is the owl. And what happens in a lot of Indigenous cultures, and I especially see it here in Mi'kmaq, is people associate that owl, um, with negative things, usually as a death omen, or you know, those kinds of things. Are It's really feared by a lot of our people because they've been told that, you know, it's been passed down in the last 500 years since colonization. But I really believe in reclaiming that spirit because that owl represents feminine leadership. And what happened when settlers came is they saw the power the women had, and that scared them. It was, it was weird and it was foreign. And so over the years, through colonization, through Christianity, it shifted that lens, and the owl became a negative thing because feminine leadership was feared. So then the owl became feared, and they changed that message around her. But in reality, she is a grandmother that works very closely with those other feminine spirits, with grandmother water, with the grandmother moon, with Mother Earth, and she's part of what connects all of those things too. And one of the huge lessons and things that we learned from her as women is we learn to work in that spiritual dimension, in a dimension different from this physical world, because that grandmother owl, because she works in the nighttime, also works in that space of dreams and visions. And that's where I think our future lies, is in our young women and our feminine leaning and feminine presenting leadership. Is they are the visionaries, they are the dreamers. And that is why, I am so passionate about working with these people. And I'm really big on reclaiming that owl imagery and sharing those teachings where I can, because I think it is so important. It's important, beautiful work, and I'm honored to be a part of it. So thank you. I'm going to be passing off to my Sugui Mig now. Thanks.
Walalin Paulina, Walalio Chukiskuga, Andel Mawidan, Indonesia Kamahan, what Jagaju Guam, Leigh is getting over it. Maybe they had a Facebook. Well, so thank you, Paulina. I feel I expand, and I get so big from inspiration when I feel and experience that we witness the leadership. So we're all proud aunties. When for myself, I've been. This has kind of been my life's work, and I didn't know that. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So just a quick reflection about how I got to sit here with all of you tonight has to do with how we've weaved our lives together in co-vision, and I think we've all found each other because of those similar circles and the work that we've been doing in our own communities. So for me, at this time, I spending much time and commitment to the Indigenous youth at St. Thomas University as the elder in residence. And I also sit with women, Wapna'kikewi'skwaq, Women of First Light. When we step out of our own wigwams or Guineas wigwam, our long houses, then we start to accommodate a different lens of expressing how we want to, who we are. And sometimes it's a really difficult channel to navigate through because we're speaking through the lens that was intentionally created to leave the feminine out. So we're working with patriarchal language, colonial structured language, and so it's difficult to bring. We're bringing a circle way and trying to birth it out through a squared institution, which is very sterile and controlled environment. So, my life has been focused on reviving or re-looking at our language and drawing on our language. And what I have discovered in our own language is the what was not congruent to how we were raised after 500 years, probably generational way of being raised as Indigenous women, and what we've explored or what we've witnessed. So for myself, almost 40 years, I've heard, women are the backbone, and women are the heart of the nation, and that we revere women, and women are the life givers, the lawmakers, and so on. And I could not see that practiced, or even it was all theory, but the language has drawn that back to me. And so in revisiting the language and the role that the language has created for me, is that how there's so much. I feel like a water balloon, and just busted on the floor, and it wants to splat out in all directions, because it's a real this is very important, and we've been working at this and talking about this for a long time. And now that when Wapna'kikewi'skwaq is now nurturing and building one of these building blocks, and or a bigahan, the ribs of our longhouses. And so in evidence of our own creation story, and is the balance of the feminine and the masculine, and what is the foundation in our own culture is feminine based. So we're talking about we are matriarchal, and the role of women, Indigenous women, in our community, in our language. There's so much evidence about how we were mother-based societies. Our governing system was founded on motherhood, and that our creation story centers on a womanness. So it was very woman-focused, in what the language is telling us. So there is something there, and so some of the leadership that we're looking at. I'm trying to see the screen to see a signal. Somebody to tell me you got 2 more minutes. So that's how I get distracted. So I guess what I just wanted to say is that drawing on our language is really our access to the to truth of an Indigenous understanding of the role of women. And so we all know that in Indigenous languages, as we begin to look at it, not just in Wabanaki, but right across Algonquin, what we all know as Algonquin tribe across the country from where the sun rises to the sunset, that we have common words. And so a lot of understanding that when we begin to bring that truth of the language, the source of that, our mother tongue, and what how significant those terms were originally, and they were moved away from non-gender, from moving it away from gender, feminine centered. So we knew our indigenous languages on this hemisphere, that they were multidimensional. When we spoke in our language, it addresses both the physical and the non-physical world, and so it was multidimensional, and that we it did not have any derogatory words, and there was no words in the language that would devalue life, and so those are some of the these are real key areas for us to really begin to look at. And so when the language needs to be decolonized and looked at through the feminine lens, and what I'm not saying that what's being collected and what we're using is not accurate, but I think we need to bring a greater wholeness into it, because the feminine lens was left out of that equation. When the settlers, the colonizers arrived, when they started to record the language, they did not want to hear a woman's understanding about the language. And so the men shared that, and it was recorded, and then it was sifted through the colonial lens, therefore shifting that whole, our whole worldview, and colonizing our language and taking the feminine and the sacred out of the language. So when Paulina talks about feminine leadership in our circle, it's very inspiring, and our wheels have been spinning for a long time, because it's in our language, and that's how we're going to be able to revive our language, heal our language, and then we look at how the role of women, the speakers in particularly, and reintroduce it, because our language has fallen asleep for a period. So when we reconnect with the language, the rise of the mother-based culture is going to be part of that reawakening. And so I think that's, I spend a lot of time on the language, because the language is the blueprint of all this information, briefly, tiny little information that I just shared. So, thank you. All in one breath.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, this is Leigh Maracle. I've been on for a while.
Hi, early. I'm so glad you're on.
Yeah, I've been on for about 15 minutes. But anyway, somebody asked me if I could introduce myself. Do you want me to introduce myself now? I don't know. I was late getting on because I had the wrong time.
Oh, please go ahead. Please go right ahead.
Okay, my name is Leigh Maracle, and I'm not sure what the introduction that you had for me was, but I'm an author. I have done an awful lot of wellness work from 1967 onward. My mother was a wellness worker. My grandmother was a healer. My great-grandmother as well was a healer, and she mainly spoke the language. She didn't speak very much English, so she was the one who actually raised me. She's Squamish. I want to clarify some things for the young, I think you're Mi'kmaq, the young girl that spoke earlier, who said that she was reclaiming the owl, and that 500 years of colonization changed the way we perceive the owl. I think we should be very careful that we're speaking for our own nations. where I come from, my great-grandmother was 14 when a white person first came into our community. So because I knew her till I was 20, I have a lot of that information of those early days of colonization. My great uncle remembers the names of the first 1,000 people that came. And he was alive when I was a young girl too. So I carry his knowledge as well. Our owl is a signal of death. And that comes from way before colonization, way before white people came to the west coast of British Columbia. We're Stalo, we're Salish, and we're Haga. We're Unama'ki. I don't know anything about what happened out here, but we have only had about 185 years of colonization. I'm 70. My great grandmother was 100 when I was 17. So she has a lot longer history than I do, and she has a history without them, as well as a history with them. I carry the knowledge of the Salish people. So I just want to say that that's who I'm speaking of. I do know, though, that there has been two movements here in the East toward reclaiming culture, one in 1735 and another one in the mid-1800s. So I do know that colonization is older here, and it's oldest actually in the Northern Cree territories and Port Albany and James Bay and those areas, and of course older in the Magi. So that's a different situation. It took a long time for them to get west. And that's because thanks to the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee who held them back and prevented them from getting over those mountains too soon for us. And I'm deeply grateful for that. So the second thing about me that I think you need to know is that I am a feminist. I don't know about what you're saying when you say feminine leadership. I don't know what that means, but I am a feminist, and we need to restore the power of women in our villages. I think people have told me that we were gender complementary before. That doesn't describe Salish people. Salish women took care of the village, and the men took care of the land outside the village. When they handed power to the elected chiefs, they handed them our villages. And so we had no power inside our homes. And that has been the case since probably the 1940s. And my grandmother and my mother and my great-grandmother was all taught me about this, the process of defeminizing our nations, taking all feminine authority out. I think it more than scared them. White women didn't have any rights whatsoever. Men owned their property, collected their wealth, and had all the say in the way things were done in their homes. That's what they feared: loss of power, loss of wealth. And so that's why they did residential school. They did the chief electoral system. They did a whole lot of things, handing power to men in our communities, handing the communities over to the men. And now we're making the mistake of calling each of our villages a First Nation. My nation is Salish. It starts in British Columbia, it ends in Montana, and takes in all of Washington. It's the size of France. That's my nation. The village I come from, Swallowtooth, that's a village. And a village is not a nation. So I just want to say that, make myself clear about who I am. And I thank the young lady for her forthright discussion about feminine power and the restoration of feminine power. Thank you.
Thank you, Leigh Maracle. It's a real honor to meet you. I was the last speaker, so I've been asked to pass the stick, and thank you so much for sitting here with us. So I'm going to pass the stick on over to Marilyn. And Marilyn is one of the women grandmothers in our circle, and her particular focus is in working with supporting healing work for the counterparts, the men in our communities. Okay, Marilyn.
Hello. Hi, Leigh.
Hi, how are you doing?
I heard my best friend is Brenda Simon, and I think you used to work.
I've known Brenda forever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, forever.
She
She always spoke of you, and I always heard your name. So when I heard you were going to be on today, I thought that was awesome. I can't wait to tell her. Guess who I see?
Yeah. Well, tell her hi, and I still love her to pieces.
Yeah, sure will. And
40 years, I think we've known each other.
Yeah, it's very long.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, I'm Marilyn. I'm Nindalawisi Gamid Muin ak Wigi Guestbuik. My name is Marilyn. Well, Standing Bear. My spirit name is, and my name is Marilyn. And I live in what they now call Yarmouth, Nova Scotia. I work with the youth. I work with, I have a men's group, a woman's group. I guess I have it all. And I enjoy being with the women and hearing them speak. And I always feel funny when I do this kind of stuff, when I have to talk. My mouth can go when I'm with a group of women all by myself, but when I'm out there, it's different. But I just always thought respect and kindness were the most important things in what my grandmother taught me, in those sort of things she said, you have to be kind. And it was kindness before she ever told me about respect. Respect came, but she said, you always have to be kind to people, and that's how I was brought up. My mom told me, if you're going to help your people, you have to help them 100%, and you have to give 100% to them. She said, because they're used to getting secondhand. And she said, when you work with your people, you'll give them the best. And so that's what I do. It doesn't matter if one person comes to a gathering or 100 people come to a gathering. You treat them all the same, and you treat them with respect. You treat them with love and understanding. There's no judgment. And I love where I'm at. I love how my life has turned out. I have 10 grandchildren. I have three children, and plus 2 who adopted me as their mom, and which is awesome. Well, really 3. There's one from South Dakota. I should mention him, and his name is Andrew. And so it's really an honor for me to be sitting here and speaking with the women and everyone else. And I wanted to share how important to me, and I can only speak for myself. I can't speak for anyone else. I can only speak for me. How important ceremony is, and how important it is to be kind to your children and to be kind to everyone, and how you speak with them and speak to them, because words are very strong. And I remember my mom told me a long time ago that when they had heard that the Agalaseos were coming, when they said the settlers were coming this way, and they were coming to kill the leaders. And so they had to get ready and they had a meeting. They had a circle, and it was discussed that these white men were coming to our lands. And it was decided that the men would step up and say they were the leaders. In reality, it was the women who were the leaders. It was the women who kept the families together, kept the nation together. And when they had heard this was taking place, it was up to the men said that they would step up to protect the life givers, because that's how sacred our women were. They were the helpers of Creator to continue with the two-legged. And it was funny when my mom told me that story, and I truly, truly miss my mom, because she was my number one. And when I speak of her, sometimes I get a little emotional. But other than that, yeah, and I was happy she told me that story, because I end up working with men. And because nowadays our men always get the short end of the stick, it seems. And they have their own trauma, and they have their own pain and suffering that sometimes they can't get over, right? So we're there as their moms, we're there as their aunties to help them. And because these men are somebody's sons, and they're somebody's brothers and somebody's dads. So I think it's very important when we do speak of our humans that we speak of them well, And I just thought it was so amazing that they sacrifice themselves, they put themselves up to protect our women. And that just kind of showed me how awesome that was, that they did that. And to share that story with men, it gives them a different way of looking at themselves, instead of looking at themselves as, deadbeat dads or whatever, So I share that with the men when I speak with them, and the importance of ceremony, in our community, my daughter was the first one to have a moon ceremony, and she said it helped her through life. It helped her make positive decisions for herself. How she grew, how she came to be. And she said it was that ceremony that helped her to respect herself and to respect her spirit and to respect who she was as a woman, as a young woman, a young girl. And and that just told me how powerful ceremonies are, and how that's what our women need, and that's what our men need, and that's what our boys need, right? So they know where they come from and who they are. I'm so happy that I could give my grandchildren a life of love and a life of happiness when they come to my home, that I'm not that person I was 40 years ago. And it was through our way of life and our ceremonies that brought me here today. And my granddaughter, I have a new granddaughter. Her name is Evelyn. And my daughter, if I don't say this, she's an inherent right fisher woman, and she has been so for a while. And she fishes not for herself, but for our people. She fishes for our women and our children, to show women, that we can do it. That she always says, we don't need men to do this for us. We can do it ourselves. My daughter is a very strong individual, very strong spirited woman. And all this time that she was fishing, the white men were attacking her. The DFO were attacking her and they were very, very violent towards her. And she never gave up. She would go out on her little boat every day, drop her traps, get her traps. And so I guess one man told her, oh, you should go back and fish like your people did. They never had haulers. So she took the hauler right off her boat and started pulling her traps up by hand. And she didn't know she was pregnant. She didn't know she was having a baby. She said women had 9 months to get ready. She said, I had 9 minutes. We thought she was having gallstones or kidney stone problems. So when we went to the hospital, the doctor said that she was ready to deliver. So this beautiful baby girl came into our life right when COVID started. When the spirit of COVID came, my granddaughter chose to come. And we decided that we were going to have a ceremony for her, a welcoming ceremony and a naming ceremony, so that she knows when she grows up that how much she was loved and how much she was cared for, and what the grandmothers did and what the grandfathers did with her arrival, you know. And I was so honored that Janie Meter and her daughter Paulina came and done the ceremony for us. And it was such an amazing, beautiful day. There was so much love. My has just brought so much love to us and to people who have seen her and met her. That it's so important that we bring that back to our children, and we reignite, I don't know if that's the right word, that spirit that's inside of us, and let them know how sacred we are and how beautiful we are and how strong our ancestors were and how beautiful they were in what they left for us. Sometimes people forget. I can't forget, you know. And I don't want to talk too long, but I just wanted to share how important it is. And I know I'm supposed to introduce Sherry. I hope I'm right. But thank you for, giving me this time to speak. I'm sitting over all my relations. Thank you.
You're passing it to Jane.
Oh, Miss Jane. And I am passing it to Jane, beautiful Jane from Unama'ki.
Thank you, Marilyn Walani. First of all, Wai Bojo Ani Tansi, Segos Kanangoa. The grandfathers and the grandmothers called me First Dawn Woman. I have the spirit of the gray horse and the white buffalo warrior. And I am Turtle Clan, and I'm from the traditional lands of Unama'ki, part of Mi'kmaq. And I like Paulina am speaking from the perspective of Mi'kmaq, because that's really all we know. I've read about others, but most of the time when we speak, it's from our experience and from our culture and from our language and from our perspective. And I understand, and I know that there are some cultures, and I've heard and I know sometimes in some places when the owl calls your name 3 times, that it's time for you to go back home to Creator. But here it was different. It was that symbol of leadership, and the people, like Leigh said, maybe it was the fear of letting go of power I was asked to talk a little bit about ceremony, the importance of ceremony. Both Paulina and I know Mi'kmaq does too. We do a lot of ceremony. My most important education has been with the elders, with the people that I've had the privilege to know, people that I am so grateful to, and who helped me find a spiritual path. I am most grateful to them. And that is the most important education I have. I have that on my CV, my top education, because although I'm a teacher by trade, none of that matters if I don't have my culture and my traditional knowledge from my ancestors, from my elders. You know, when we were speaking, I was saying about ceremony, and Mi'kmaq has brought it up, like the women. One of the things that a word that is common in our language is a word we call blowing. And it comes from the word bewat, which means to dream or to vision, right? And that's where our messages come from the spirit world, is through visions and dreams. And those are the gifts that Creator and Spirit gave us to stay in touch with them. And in our language, we have that Bowen, who's also, I guess sometimes in English, they're called a medicine person. The person who raises the pipe, the person who goes into ceremony, the person who has visions, and the person who brings messages. And that can be any of us. We're all gifted in that way, that Spirit doesn't give to some and not to others. They give to us in different ways, and depending how ready we are to accept that, to open our hearts, to open our minds, and to open our spirits to that. And in our culture, in our way of life here in the spiritual realm, I know that in a lot of times in the Judeo-Christian faith, it was usually men, whereas with us, it was also women. We walked side by side with the men. We walked with them, and we were also ceremonial leaders, and still are. I shouldn't say we are ceremonial leaders, and just as well as the men are. And the word that we call the women is Bowinesk, which is the feminine. It's that woman who has visions and dreams and teaches. And, and like us too, there were similarities. With us too, the women were the ones that owned the homes. The women were the ones that owned what was in the home, but it wasn't about being possessive about it. It was understood it was the realm of the feminine, of the women. And in the 1930s, when the anthropologists Wallace and Wallace were coming through here, through our territory, and they were fascinated by a game that we have called Waltus. And it's an interesting game. It's a dice game, and it's played in a wooden bowl, and there's dice that are made from bone and shins, and then there's from the shin bone of a deer or a moose, and then there's counters on how you keep count. It's very interesting. I just want to quickly say that it teaches a lot of mathematics. It teaches addition, subtraction, division, multiplication, and fractions. So it's a really good game that to learn as a child. And so that game, anyway, that game was being used and played. And the anthropologists, in every situation, they asked the men, because they were coming from that Eurocentric mentality, they would ask the men, can you sell that to us? And in every instance, the men said, it's not mine. It belongs to my wife. You need to talk to her about it. I can't sell it. And it was understood that it was the women who owned the things in the home. And even up until then, the 1930s, most Mi'kmaq women kept their last name. They didn't take on the husband's name. They kept their own identity, their own name, you know. And so those are some things I just wanted to talk about a little bit. But the ceremonies, we've had ceremonies. We have so many. We have ceremonies that begin long before birth, long before the womb, to long after the tomb. After somebody has passed away, years later, we still do memorials, we do ceremonies, we do ancestral ceremonies for them, and they cover our lives. Spirituality is such an important and integral part of our lives that you can't separate it from our culture. Somebody asked me that one time, well, do you need to always talk about spirituality? I said, yes, because that's our culture. Our culture is based on spirituality. It's based on our belief system and how we treat each other. And one of the biggest things when we talk about, when Merdina has talked about it, beautiful Merdina, who's passed away, but she talked about the importance of love. And she said, love is the gift that is given to us by spirit, by creator. We come into this world with love, and we need to learn how to give that love in, but we come into it. It is one of the gifts that we don't have to earn. We don't have to work for. It is automatically given to us, or it was in the I don't know, like today, I know there's children coming into the world without love, but still in our way, love was the first gift. And it is something that you don't have to work for. You don't have to work for like you have to do with respect or anything else. It was just something that was given. And one of the first ceremonies that we do, Paulina and I do, is we welcome that baby into the world. And it's such an important ceremony, because as soon as that baby comes into the world, we speak to that baby and we give a bath. The grandmothers and the grandmothers in particular and aunties give the baby his or her first bath, and we welcome that baby and we tell that baby how much they mean to us, how important they are, and thank that baby for choosing our family, for choosing us to be their parents. And we make a pledge to that baby that we will do everything we possibly can in our power, with our love and understanding, to raise them in the way our ancestors wanted us to, or want us to. And that's, of course, with love, with respect for all people, with dignity, treating people with dignity, and making sure that everybody we come across, that we leave the fire of Creator within them. You know, and I was told one time that the grandmother told me that that you can walk into the darkest spirit or soul place as long as you carry that fire of Creator. And when you go in there and you touch that spirit, when you leave, that you leave the fire of Creator there. It may only be an ember, but nonetheless, it is the fire of Creator and that fire of love. And so with that, I think it's time for me to pass the talking stick on to Kathy. Walalio, miigwech, and yawa.
Kwe. Nin Gadalinan Maltai and Willalan to Jane. So I wanted to also welcome Leigh to our circle. I've had the honor of sharing some time with her in Ottawa in Quebec City a few years ago when we were given the Order of Canada together. I think you were maybe given a higher order at the time within that circle. Anyway, we had a good time, and it was an honor to be with you and honored to see you again. We're going to cut mine short because we are running out of time. That's the problem in this world. Like we go according to 13 moons, and our cycles are 28 days as we would follow Giju, the grandmother moon. And somehow the people that came here later, 500 years ago, went according to 12. So I think there's an issue with time. We have a difference in understanding time. In our circles, what's wonderful about our circles when we do gather for midwinter gatherings or just to gather as the women of First Light, we take 4 days just to hang out and be together and do ceremony. This group of women have been a great support to me in sharing ceremony, including everybody as one in ceremony. I'm a mom of 2 children, and my daughter is 32. She's a lawyer. And my son is now in the spirit world. He was 18 and he was killed in a car accident. And I don't think I ever would be here today without this group of women who have held me up, came to my side, like Marilyn, came right to my door and started a sacred fire as soon as she heard. And I was able to, not just during the early times, but I still can call on them and be with them, and they still hold me up. And that's the magic of this group. I come from Millbrook, Mi'kmaq community under the Mi'kmaq Nation. My mom and dad are Ben and Jean Martin, and my grandparents, both sides, are Mi'kmaq. One of my great-grandmas from Conn River, Newfoundland, and the rest of my family are from Nova Scotia, Mi'kmaq. So I come from a long line of storytellers, of trappers, of hunters, and I love that. And I love being a filmmaker because I get to learn all kinds of stories about all kinds of things. So in many ways, I've been a keeper of knowledge, not just in my head, but also I transfer it to film. I remember Shirley Bear, one of my first film I made, but way back when you used film and sound, 16 millimeter. She asked me to make a film about her because there was a little project called 5 Feminist Minutes. And she said she wanted a Mi'kmaq or Indigenous woman to make a little film about 5 Feminist Minutes. So I did. And when I first came to her, she brought me into a pipe ceremony before we started. And here I just did whatever she told me. And she said, always, always, before you begin a film or anything, you do ceremony. And that will help you to stay on the right road, and it will help get the work done that you need. And it's been true, and I thank Shirley Bear for that. I'm running out of time already, I think. So this group has been magical. It's been lots of fun. I believe in it because of our disconnection with our culture, because of the disconnect of 500 years of an imposed culture on us, imposed value system, we we lost a lot of what of that knowledge, and we're bringing it back. But in the process of bringing it back and trying to, in ceremony and by knowledge keepers, bring our own Mi'kmaq and W'lust'k and the Wapna'kike teachings back, we've been offered other teachings, and people go all over the place now, so they bring home other teachings. And I believe that has confused a lot of our young people. It confused me. They weren't all the teachings that I was given over the last 40 years, a lot of them didn't work. And when I lost my son, I learned a great lesson that you have to go back to your own teachings. As much as the other ones that come from other places are great, you need to go back to yours, and you need to know your ceremonies and know your ways, because that gives you your identity. So as a filmmaker and as a member of this beautiful group, I'm here so that the young people and the next 7 generations are not confused the way we were confused by being taught not just other people's ceremonies, but a very strange way of life, the Eurocentric way of life. And that confusion has caused so many issues amongst our people, our young people especially. And I remember being one of them, knowing I just don't know what's right, what's wrong. A lot of the teachings, they felt very not ours. They weren't given to us the way our elders give us our teachings, in a beautiful way. So I love this, and I'm doing this for the next 7 generations because I make sure that our children and our future know who we are. And I remember Hubert Francis telling me, I said, oh, I got to go down to this ceremony because we're going to be talking about matriarchal and how to reclaim matriarchal and the clan systems and the clan mothers. And Hubert Francis is a wonderful support to us, and he a beautiful singer. And he said, you don't have to go down there. I mean, you go there, but don't go there to reclaim. Just be the clan mothers. Just be those women that we always have been, and walk in that way, and that's how it will come back. So at that, I'm going to let it go. I had lots of things, but a lot of the women spoke so much about it. If you want, I thank Mother Earth for finally saying to everybody, okay, if you're not going to listen by all the messages I've given you and all the disasters, fine then. If you're not going to listen and you can't stop, destroying us, I'm just going to shut you all down. And so I have seen such a miracle happen during this COVID, because so much has come back. And it's come back through ceremony, prayers, and us believing that the earth is, Mother Earth is, who is the being that provides us with an air and water. And doesn't matter where we come from, air and water is what we all need. One of the projects, and you could go online, and learn much more about us, but one of the projects we're doing is getting missing and murdered Indigenous women families together. We've been doing that for years, and getting them to create Mi'kmaq peaked caps. They were caps worn in ceremony and traditionally by Mi'kmaq women that teach us a lot of things about who we are as women. So that's one of the things we're doing, and I'd love for you to come and look at it online. Now I get the pleasure of introducing Sherry Pictou, Dr. Sherry Pictou. She presently, and I'm the director of the Indigenous Community Engagement for Dalhousie University. I have to say that. And Sherry works now at Dalhousie University. We were both working over at Mount St. Vincent together, and then we both moved over to Dalhousie. And welcome, Sherry. And I don't have to say much more because she'll say what needs to be said.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. And I know we're short of time here. And so I'll try to keep this short. And I know a few of you are saying, yeah, sure, right, Sherry, but I will. Yeah, I'm Sherry Pictou, and I come from Untitled, where the water cuts through high. Bernie Francis, our linguist, told me a while ago that we have to start honoring our traditional, or the language of our geographical spaces. But otherwise, it's Bear River First Nation within the Guestboat, same fishing and hunting territory that Marilyn's from. And so that's where I'm from. And my work, I never planned on being a professor or work in academia the way that I am. A lot of this is Kathy's fault. That's another story. But anyways, some of the work that I do, we've been talking a lot about how we've been dispossessed even through our language in some ways, or our language has been colonized, and Mi'kmaq talked about that and so forth. And I was seeing, because I don't have a whole lot of time leading up to this, but I was seeing, the grandmothers, they refer to them as the grandmothers or land water defenders fighting in assisted mine, and our holistic sisters up in New Brunswick, and this whole Alton gas ordeal. And I was saying, why is that? Because I know some of those women, and I know some of those women are really grounded and rooted in ceremony. And so why are they doing that? And they were being, cast in the media as troublemakers and so forth. And so my work is about creating space for them to tell their stories, because they were pretty well excluded from any formal negotiation processes around treaty or what have you. And just to put a plug in, I've partnered with Kairos, and we have a website. We launched it with Latin America, but we now have a Canadian dimension to it, and we're hoping to have some digital stories by these women on there called MIR, the Mother Earth Resource Extraction. And it's where they can learn and teach one another and have resources for them. So this is a hard journey, and as these women know me too well, all of our lives have been really tough on this road. And I just want to say that it was so strange. I get this invitation through Ishmael to go to this gathering. I think it was in 2017, yes, because I just started the job at the Mount. And so I'm driving home, and I stop at Tim Hortons, and I run across Marilyn. And I thought, why are these women coming out of the woodwork? And I said, so I must go. I must go to this gathering. And since then, they have lifted me so many times. And Mi'kmaq and I go way back to the first round of the fishery disputes back in 1999. And they ground me. And as Kathy was saying, her teachings was, you just do it. And I'm always critical, and I'm contemplating and so forth. Well, the Women of First Light, we attend one of Mi'kmaq's lodge, the Longhouse. And that was such an extraordinary experience for me. And I thought, well, this is it. This is what we have to keep doing. We have to keep up with these ceremonies. We have to keep doing this, because we were just doing it. And we sat there for almost 2 days, and these men listening to us speak, I was just so flabbergasted over that whole experience. And I learned a lot. And then I drove this young woman, Paulina, home. And I thought, and I'm really shy, and I don't like taking people on my car because I'm saying, oh, what am I going to say? Well, that was the shortest trip that I've ever made. I think we were coming from Fredericton. And so I'm not going to say a whole lot, but there's a lot of teachings here, as you can see from these wonderful women. And I do believe that they were put in my life, or I was put in their lives for a reason, because the last few years have been difficult. It's easy to get really discouraged. And just seems when I'm discouraged, something hauls me back in and saying, okay, Sherry, you know, we're going to regenerize you or help you find your energy and send you back out into the world again. And so this form had come up. And I just want to thank Paulina, because within the last 2 weeks, you know, I heard those teachings about the owl. And again, I will qualify that this is no reflection on any other tribe or any other culture, but from the Mi'kmaq perspective, I really want to thank you with all my heart for that teaching, because I was always in fear of owls. And some woman, a very powerful woman actually, gave me an owl feather, and that fear is even in our own community. Oh, you better get rid of that owl feather. And I did try as respectfully. I didn't burn it or destroy it, but I offered it back to the land. And here within the last 2 weeks, and I can't believe I'm sharing this on the internet, I had this very powerful, quiet dream. And there was, I don't know what kind of tree it was, but there was this tree and it was all quiet, but this light came on the tree. And there was, I can't remember how many. I wish I got up and wrote this down, because I want to start writing these dreams. And there were these huge, beautiful owls in this tree. And I think there was about 4 or 5 of them. I can't remember. And they were just there. And of course, that colonial mindset, I woke up, but I said, Sherry, you weren't scared. You weren't scared in that dream. It was almost like the moonlight didn't come from down. It was just like there was this light on this tree. It was dark, but it showed these owls. And I've been perplexed by that for the last few days. This was in the last couple of weeks. And I was perplexed by that. And I thought, oh, something going to bad happen to me? Are there 4 or 5 people after me? But I didn't feel any of that in my soul. I didn't feel any of that in my soul. And so again, I don't know if I'm contributing anything here, but I do know that I take that teaching in my heart, Paulina, and because I was wondering, what is she going to talk about, that owl and leadership? And I'll take that, and I'm going to take that as a good sign that the grandmothers were with me, or they were telling me something. Mrs. Nogama, I kept it short, all my relations. Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you, Sherry. I love you. I love all of you guys so much. And I know I was asked to sort of bring it together before we introduce our commentators. So things I did want to talk about quickly. We talked about that importance of ceremony, and I was so honored to be able to be the first person in my community in over 100 years to be able to have my rites of passage, my coming of age ceremony, my welcoming to womanhood done in a public space that was open to our community. I get emotional just thinking about that, because my grandmother talks about her grandmother, being able to do those rites of passage, and they weren't done in our community until I was able to have them done for me in 2003. When I was 13, and it was amazing and so powerful. And I really credit that ceremony with shaping who I am today. I was so fortunate to grow up in a home where ceremony and language were made accessible to me by my mom. But that ceremony was life altering for me. That gave me the power it gave me the gift of seeing my own power, is what I mean, because it taught me about resilience, about sustaining, about abstaining, and about taking care of myself. Because during that ceremony, it's a long ceremony, but the way that we did it at the time, there are obviously variations, but the one we did was I did a 1-year berry fast after my first menses, and then after that 1 year, we had this huge feast with all these berries, and I had 4 godmothers that had come to me in dreams and visions, and who I chose in this physical world to come and stand with me and welcome me into womanhood. I was wrapped in a star blanket by them. All 4 of them sat with me and shared lessons, about things that they learned in their lives, things that they thought would be helpful to me in my journey through womanhood. And they pledged to be there for me, you know, during the rest of that journey and during their physical lives on this earth. And it was phenomenal though, because that berry fast was a big part of teaching myself my own boundaries and my own strength. So I really credit that. And that's kind of where I wanted to wrap it into, you know, that our ceremonies build foundation for our people. And like Meeg said, language is our key. You know, it is all in there. It's all in there. And like my mom said too, you know, we can only speak for people of Wapna'kike. My mom's family is Mi'kmaq. My dad's family is Penobscot and Mi'kmaq. So you know, I am a product of the Wabanaki Confederacy. So, you know, that's the only experience I can speak from. And I love and appreciate learning from other elders from all across Turtle Island. You know, my mom talked about that with the education, and I do that in my CV as well. And in my resume, I make sure to value that Indigenous knowledge because I think it needs to be normalized. Traditional education needs to be normalized and valued in colonial institutions. So I make a point, you know, to put it in all of my things that I have these lifelong teachings from different ceremonies and gatherings from all across Turtle Island. So, you know, I value that so much. I value it more. I mean, I love my education, I love my job, but the same as my mom, I value that so much more because that's built who I am spiritually and emotionally. And those are the parts that make me human, you know? And then the last little bit I wanted to talk on too is, you know, that those teachings do vary across Turtle Island. And I think that that's okay. And you know, I never experienced that confusion thing, but I think that it also was because I had this beautiful woman holding my hand through all of it. But, you know, I think that wherever ceremony comes from Indigenous people, you know, whether it's Mi'kmaq or Salish or Cree or any other nation, it's about the intent. You know, when the messages come from spirit and it's about spirit and it resonates in your spirit, that's what matters, you know. And for some, and because of this colonized thing, this is the thing that we tend to do, is we're okay adopting Christian values all the time, but we have such a hard time taking values from other Indigenous people, which is so much closer to our own belief system, you know. And I really value learning from other people because of that. That's what resonates with me. And you know, my mom always taught me in those places, you listen to your spirit, you take what feels right to you, what sits right and what resonates with you is what you're meant to take away. You know, everyone in every nation has something to teach us, and it's beautiful, and I love that. But, you know, you take what you need and you leave the rest, because yeah, those might not be teachings that come from your people, but if they're all done in spirit with that intent, they're from a good place and they have value. And it's kind of up to you to see where you have your values. So yeah, and then in that, I think I've made some little notes about stuff I wanted to wrap up on real quick. So I just wanted to say, yeah, you know, we need to nurture our next generations, whether they're feminine or masculine. You know, as feminine beings, that's our responsibility. In our traditions, you know, we are taught women are our first teachers, regardless of your sex or gender. You learn from your mom first because you're held in a moss bag or in a cradle board as a child. You watch and see what she does. Everyone's first teachers are their moms and their grandmothers and their aunties. So, you know, that's a big responsibility, but that's what we do. You know, we're all people have the capability of being leaders. They just need to be given the tools. And that's what our mission, I think, is here. And especially with bringing back that clan mother system, is building like a toolbox and a bundle, you know, to grow our next generations of amazing leaders, and bring back that balance, because that's what it's about. You know, it's not about women taking over. It's about bringing back the balance of masculine and feminine and working together in harmony and doing the things where we lead by example. We step up, we do what we need to do, whether, you know, that be a traditional male or female role in our in our places, like Marilyn said, her daughter stepped up because there were not men filling that role. So a woman stepped up. And that's how we've always been, at least on, like I said, in Mi'kmaq. It's what we do. We just do what we need to do. And I think we just need to continue lifting each other up, taking care of each other, being very aware of our own personal biases, and deliberately trying to stop some of the lateral violence we have going on. There's a lot of it. It's a whole other discussion, but like I said, I think as long as we lead with love and compassion, we're going to be moving in the right direction. And with that, I will finally stop talking. And I do want to introduce our Leighs as our commentators. They're going to be popping up now, and they're going to be asking some questions and taking some of the questions asked by the audience and presenting them to the panel and Women of First Light.
Hello. First Light. We have a word for that. It's Luma, the first light of dawn. And it is about women getting up in the morning and carrying the day. We have another saying. We go like this, and we say, "Hajka." And I know that we were taught that it meant thank God. And I asked my dad before he passed away, okay, if Hajk means pick up and hold up, why does Hajka mean thank God? And he says, well, obviously it doesn't. It means I hold up spirit. And whoever you're talking to, you're holding up their spirit. And that's a commitment that we make to one another as we go through our lives. So I think that's what the women who have been speaking have been talking about. The commitment they make to other women to hold each other up and to carry the bundles that are there in the nation. And here's the other thing. Someone mentioned that if a man doesn't do it, then she picked up that bundle. Well, that is the way it should go. If someone drops their bundle, it doesn't matter whether it's good reasons or bad reasons. I think you're the one who said, doesn't matter if they're drunk or not. They need the caring. So you pick up their bundles and carry them for them until they're ready to pick them up again. And we always presume the best in people. And I think you spoke about that in the beginning when you were saying it, everyone needs care. Everyone needs care, and everyone needs our caring. And so when we put someone down because they have a behavior that we don't agree with, then that's an uncaring act, and it doesn't belong to us. It's not part of who we are. Someone else also talked about the importance of language, and I wanted to tell you this because I love this little part of who we are, is that the language is in your body. And if your head is speaking English and your body speaking cultivating, you're not communicating. So we have to get our heads to speak English. And I think the body knows when something is not being translated appropriately. I know that the translations of our original language, Halkamilam and Squamish, was done by priests. And so a lot of our words were mistranslated. But if it doesn't sit right in the body will tell us what sits right. We'll feel it. And I have heard that in this conversation from all of you, that when it feels right, then it's right. And that is another way that we have of knowing our body will tell us what's right. So the last thing that I could hear you say was that the business of balance. I don't have that in as a style of teaching. We have, I just want to say, we have a separated lifestyle. The men take care of the land and we take care of the village. We take care of the relations between human beings. We make sure that things are done well and that we are living well alive. That's what we make sure of. And so I'm not sure about balance because before Europeans came, we had slaves, and that seems to me out of balance now, with what I know now. And so we have had long conversations examining our old cultures and retrieving what's good about us and letting go ceremonially, personally, physically, what is not good about us. I don't think anybody else on this continent had slaves, but I know the West Coast was rife with it. And so I have to say that to people, though, because it's part of our history. There's things that we have let go of. So we don't talk about balance so much as the fire and the keepers of the fire, the people who can stand with their backs to the fire, and the people that light the fire. Those are the 4 different kinds of people in our nation. The first, the fire, is the women who love the children and raise the children. I raised my nephews and nieces. My sisters all worked. So I was considered the fire. They were women who could stand with their backs to the fire or face the fire. And that put them out in the world and back in the home. And then the men who stood next to the women were men who could stand with their backs to the fire or could face the fire. And then the other men that are, I think other people call them warriors, but we don't say that. We say the men that stand facing outward with their backs to the fire. They don't work well with women, but they are always like that one fellow who said, "It's not mine to give you. I don't own it. It's my wife's." They're always straight up honest about that. And they're the men who go to the woman's village when they marry so that they can become a good man. They're always becoming a good man. And I'm glad that you did your becoming woman ceremony. My daughters did too, and I did too. But I do know that it's not well practiced out here. The other part of our becoming woman ceremony is that we had to spend a year with the elder women in the nation and learn things from them, so that when we did the becoming woman ceremony, we're still becoming women until someone tells you that you're there, and then the way you learn that you're there is they ask you to come and be their elder. And that's a really high honor when someone does that. And so you're recognized as being something. Or as Kathy Martin says, you get the Order of Canada, and people respect that from the other side of the fire, the non-Indigenous people. Someone else spoke about how we need to come together from both sides of the colonial coin. The people themselves have to come together. And that's not an easy thing because Canadians view this country as theirs. And that's not how I think we need to see it. There was no gathering of Indigenous people that legitimizes that claim. Until we have legitimized that claim, the country is still ours, and the land is still ours, and our nations still stand. I'm not saying that that's the way we should go or shouldn't go. I'm just saying that there is no gathering that sanctioned Canada taking power from us and taking our land from us. And that's all I have to say as my comments. But Haitchkasiyam to all of you for this gathering. Lights up. Women of Light. Luma.
I just wanted to comment quick on what you said, Leigh, too, is from my perspective, what you're talking about, your society's foundation is still a type of balance, because we believe in that too. Everyone has their roles and responsibilities, and that's how our societies work and move forward and work together and work for the betterment of our people. So, as in a colonial sense, you might not see it in, the balance lens, but from what I'm hearing, from what I know about my teachings, that's the same message that it's, we all have our places and they're all important. And I love that. So
Right.
thank you for sharing yours too.
Okay.
I'm going to jump in and just say,
Other Leigh.
the other Leigh, just to say how grateful I am to be here and to continue to learn and sort of decolonize my own worldviews and ways of thinking as a white settler person. And just the opportunity that I've had here to think and listen and be still. I have been in motion for like maybe my whole life, but definitely in the last month, there's been a lot of restlessness. And so I'm grateful to have the time with all of you today and to hear these things that these conversations that we've been having. And I think one of the things that resonated so strongly with me was what Kathy said about, don't worry about reclaiming, just go out and do it and just be who you are. And I think that really loops into something for me that Leigh, who I will not call the other Leigh, said in a previous conversation, and ties to some of the things you just said, Leigh, about, who made these rules. And if we don't agree with these rules, there are settlers who don't agree with these rules too. And there are people who are trying to sort of reach around or across to work together. And I think something that has been a part of my actions in my life has always been to find the space to do the work that I want to do. And sometimes that means pushing some boundaries, and it means ruffling some feathers, and it means occupying space that is uncomfortable for me as a settler person or for me as a woman. And maybe it's uncomfortable because people don't want to give me that space, but I have to take it. And so I think that's something that I've been thinking a lot about. And then conversely, leading up to this, I kept thinking a lot about not wanting to take up any space because of a lot of the privilege that I have. So it's not necessarily a very coherent set of commentary, but I think that some of the things that were said today got me thinking about that, and thinking about my home community in Thunder Bay, where the trial of Barbara Kentner has been delayed again because of a fire at the courthouse. And Barbara Kentner was killed by a white teenager. He threw a trailer hitch at her from a moving vehicle. And Barbara Kentner is the same age as me, but she's not here anymore because she was Indigenous and a woman and walking down the street. And I don't feel good about that. And I don't feel good about that happening in the community where I grew up. So, I'm thinking about those things, and I've been thinking about that throughout our conversations this week. So I'm very grateful, and it's 8:29, and I'm going to stop talking now. And thank you very much, everyone.
I just wanted to say thank you to you too, Leigh, because like you said, it is, even though you were apprehensive about taking up space, you are welcome and loved here, because we do need those allies, and that's a call to action I'm making to every single person listening and that are here, that be a good ally, show up, take space and do it, and I think, maybe don't take the voice from Indigenous people, obviously, but show up and take space in those spaces that, there aren't those voices available or nobody's listening, and make space for those voices. So thank you, Leigh, for doing that work, for making the space for our voices and for upholding our voices, because it is hard work and it's admirable and it's needed. We need allies. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Grace, do you want to bring your question forward?
Hello?
Yeah, I just had a question about anybody that just worked in any kind of social systems or healthcare systems, and like what kind of challenge did you see any like positives changes that have occurred since the beginning of working in those systems? And how do you think that the next generation can keep moving these positive changes forward?
Can I respond a little bit to that? A long time ago, we weren't allowed to work in those systems, and now we are. So yeah, there's been a big change. We're there, but we're not looking at the envelope that outreach comes in. And so we need to have a look at how is it packaged and start pushing the envelope in a direction that we think things should be going. And the other thing, this is for Leigh too, and I think it's Paulina, it's finding the allies inside those institutions is a big part of the work.
For me, you know, as a nurse in healthcare, and I've been a chronic disease patient since I was an infant, but, you know, the first Indigenous nurse in Canada finished her degree in 1914. That is just over 100 years ago. And she wasn't actually allowed to practice as an Indigenous nurse. She had to give up her status to do that. She was enfranchised to be able to do that. You know, and it wasn't until reforms in the Indian Act much later in the century that we didn't have to give up our rights to be able to practice, you know, and that's not my lifetime, but that's my mom's lifetime that those things have changed, you know, and even in my 30 years on this earth, I've seen changes, you know, I've seen a difference with Indigenous nurses being comfortable identifying themselves, feeling safe being in those places and saying, yeah, I'm Indigenous. You know, when I did a placement at the children's hospital here, and I had pins on my lanyard that had that was a red dress for missing and murdered women, and a woman from another community that wasn't mine saw it, and she asked me, "Are you Native?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she was so excited. She was so happy that I would be taking care of her child. And we didn't do any specific cultural care, but just having that representation and having people present and people being proud of who they are makes such a huge difference. You know, and that's the differences I've seen, and the positive change I've seen is you know, we're happy to be there, we're happy to be a part of it. And for me, I'm happy to identify myself and not, you know, and be unapologetic about it. When people say things, I call them out, and I have no problem doing that. And I haven't lost a job yet for it, so that's good.
Yeah.
Wow. Terry, do you want to say a few words before Kathy drums for us?
So rarely am I speechless, but after hearing all of you, that I was scribbling notes, and if we had more time, I'd picked out bits and pieces from all of what people said to kind of conclude. And I just wanted to kind of flash on a couple of key closing thoughts. I so appreciate Leigh Maracle's message about everyone needing care, and acknowledging the importance of those who raise the children. How beautiful and profound and important a message to all of us, and those who face the fire as well. Wow. And to Leigh Potvin for reminding us, you know, for settlers, it's not about taking the space. We've got to be careful not to do that, but taking responsibility. And how do we do that? And how do we find ways to do that in solidarity with our brothers and sisters, and find the best ways to do that? And I was kind of taking my breath taken away by when Mig said, there's no words in our language to devalue life.
Yeah.
And that just settled with me. And I just thought, that's so beautiful. And that the language needs to be decolonized and looked at through the feminine lens. And I feel like that's what we've seen tonight. And women with visions and dreams and strength. Thank you to all of you. It's been such a privilege to hear you speak and to share your stories. Very, very, very powerful. And I just wanted to say, and I'll also give Deanne a chance to say a couple of words, just to tell people, if you've enjoyed tonight, if you want to be part of the rest of the series, we'd be so happy for you all to return for our other sessions, and that we're going to continue this dialogue moving into different sorts of areas. And our next event, which will take place on October 29th, and that is, it's always all about the land. And we're going to have Mi'kmaq Elder Stephen Augustine speaking, Associate Vice President of Indigenous Affairs in Unama'ki College, and also Kanawake Mohawk philosopher Taiyaki Alfred, who will come, and Carolyn Sylvester, a CBU student who lives in Member 2, an environmentalist, a young mother, a beautiful spirit. She was invited to be part of the Member 2 Council. She declined because she's busy finishing her studies, but she's an exciting young up-and-coming woman who can sort of speak to a lot of the things that Paulina Meter raised today, and it's so exciting. I can't wait to hear her speak. So I hope you can all be part of that next event, and I'll finish there.
This is my dear Leigh. I gave you a beautiful introduction, and I'm so sorry about the time difference. That messes me up all the time too.
I'm so sorry.
No worries. Actually, it always works out exactly the way it's supposed to, and I love the way that you just picked up when you arrived. So deep, deep gratitude for that. I have never had a group of women like this, and I can't believe I'm having an experience like this online. It's just amazing. Thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing. I want to do this again and again and again. Thank you for welcoming my niece Grace into the circle. She's already a big fan, Paulina, and I think we all need to hold each other and look to the next generations. I don't have anything to add that hasn't already been said, except deep thank you. And Kathy has offered to share a song, but if anybody has any final words, I'd invite you to say something.
We just had a question from the chat. First, there's a comment from my cousin saying my Auntie Katie is watching. That's my grandmother's only living sibling left. That's her sister Katie. She's a brilliant, wonderful lady. She's got her master's in social work, but she's also a phenomenal ceremonial leader for us. She carries moon ceremonies in my community, and that's where I learned a lot of what I do and a lot of my teachings. So just want to give a shout out to Katie, tell her we love her. And then there was a question from YouTube from Laura Prosper saying, I am currently getting a Mi'kmaq Knowledge Keepers group for Eskasoni. Are there other similar groups that are active that we could correspond with?
So Mi'kmaq has been working on, we had a seniors project over the summer, or over the spring and the summer. And so elders from 5 different communities gathered 6 times. And I'm not really sure if it's still going, but there was certainly a group that was coming together there around treaty rights and around sovereignty and around traditional medicine and such. So that's definitely one group there that could connect with. And that was a part of Women of First Light. It's sort of a circle that we started up in that territory. They could always message on our Facebook page.
Good idea.
But there's also there are many groups around. One in particular that I really like, and the Wolastoqiyik and the Passamaquoddy and Penobscot are part of, is that Wabanagi Confederacy. And they hold their meetings in the winter, in February. And if you get an opportunity, I know we're not doing it now because of COVID-19, But if you get an opportunity to go to any of those gatherings, you do learn a lot from those elders, both men and women, and young people and old people and everybody in between. And but I think too, if you get a hold of probably Michael R. Inescasoni, Michael R. Denny, he has access to a lot of different elders and knows who they are in some of the communities. And maybe he can help you.
That's what I was gonna say, is what my mom's saying. Like, unfortunately, there's not a lot of formal groups that are you know, purely dedicated to helping share our knowledge. But there are a lot of individuals who have their own beautiful networks, large, wonderful networks through whatever you want to learn, whether that be about plant medicine or specific teachings or lodge building. We all have those contacts. So I also want to extend that and extend it on behalf of all of the women of First Light who are participating here, that you can get in contact with any of us who are close to your region, and let us know what you're looking for, what kind of connections you're looking for, and we can point you in the right direction. In my case, I will defer you probably to my mom, but I do have a couple of my own. Mostly I'm going to ask her, but still, like, we do have these networks. They're not necessarily advertised or super organized, but they exist, they're there, and we can help you find them.
Okay, I think my phone is dying.
Oh, and Kathy's back. Welcome back, Kathy. Terry, you wanted to say something before?
I just wanted to say quickly, because I really feel like when we're talking about everybody needs care and acknowledgement, I just wanted to acknowledge Catalina Belalcazar from Colombia, who in the background has been doing all the kind of making the questions work, answering our, doing the hard work in the background, and Jeremy Martel from the Cape Breton Partnership, who's kind of bringing all the technology pieces together. Thanks to both of them for being there to support us and to allow this to actually happen. So thank you for your hard work.
And on that note, everyone, in respect of your time, I'm going to invite Kathy to drum us out, and we're going to sing along. Muted.
Well, we need to mute our mics because the sound will be weird. So we need to mute our mics if we're singing, because
Is there anything we can help with, Kathy? Tech-wise? Ah. Oh, she's muted. Can somebody help with that? Jeremy, are you able to help with that?
Yeah, Kathy, I'm just clicking ask to unmute. There should be a button that shows up. If you click it, it should unmute you. I think if I read her lips, she said, I know, but it isn't. I'm correct.
Well, honestly, it went so well up until this point with the technology. It's
Okay. Okay, I don't know what's going on, but it's called the Wuglademuch. Okay, if you want, I'm just gonna sing a part of this song. It wasn't what I was gonna sing, but I want to sing it. It's called For Miselgeech, and it's about Miselgeech from number 2. Away, oh hey, away, oh hi, hey, oh. Away, oh, hey, oh, hey, oh, hey, oh. Away, oh, hey, hey, oh, hey, oh, hey, oh. Away, oh, hey, oh, hey, oh, hey, oh. Away, oh, hey, hey, oh. When an elder dies, a child is born. And the moon, she will rise o'er the setting sun, and she'll move the ocean tides with the power of her mind. Away, oh, hey, away, oh, hi, hey, oh. Away, oh, hey, oh, hey, oh, hey, oh. Away, oh, hey, hey, oh, hey, oh, hey, oh. Away, hey, oh, hey, oh, hey, oh. Away, oh, hey, hey, oh. Thanks, Leigh Maracle, for coming on.
Woohoo!
We love you. Guess hello.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Okay, Namoltas.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Baliula, Montoksub.
Hey, I love you. I can't now leave either.
Yes, hello, look.
Trying to get out and I can't leave. Someone will have to shut me down.
Love you, ladies. Akulalio.
Kesalunek.
Medyo kulalio. Kebis at that never chicolated. Make it salolo no.
Kesaluno hakilo. Baliula.
Midge, beautiful.
Okay,
oh, there we are. There we are.
This is the one.
Away, oh, hi, hey, oh. Away, oh, hey, 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 away, oh, hey, 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 away, oh, hey, away, oh, hey, hey, away, oh, hey. Away, oh, hey, hey, away, oh, hey.
Well, that's the credits now. It's not the credits for this.
Wow. Thank you so much there for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm so glad we got to see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry we didn't get all the audience to ask us questions, so maybe they can send some to us.
Yeah, there were a few. I think we tried to address them, and I think there'll be a lot that will emerge. I expect to hear more.
Well, my phone died. My data ran out. My car died. I'm sitting with no battery, so you know it's a powerful night. Powerful night.
Yeah.
Supposed to be lots of meteors happening tonight.
See ya, Ish.
Good to meet you both.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Ish, Kathy.
All of you, all your hard work in making this happen. So appreciated.
Yeah,
So,
you'll have to come to one of our gatherings.
I can't wait. Yeah. It's this COVID is messing with our
Oh, we have our ways. We have our ways.
no doubt. No, that was
Thank
beautiful.
you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Catalina.
Hey, I'm leaving.
All
Bye,
right.
Kathy.
Right. That was great. That was